You held the Olympic torch for
Yes.
the Olympics, for Visa. And I was like, this guy is in his groove.
I was waiting for the person before me to come to me. And then in my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to think about? What is it that I want to reflect on?
Yeah.
And at that moment, I decided nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing.
just be there.
This moment is just for me. The next 90, 120 seconds is just for me to absorb this energy.
Yeah.
Because it is everything that I've worked coming together for this moment.
In this episode, we speak to Anil Toraty. Whether it's the time he decided to take his dad's office on a Sunday and use it to burn CDs to sell to his friends at school, all the way through to being asked to carry the Olympic torch for Visa at the recent Olympics. Everything in between is a brilliant journey, and I'm so excited for you to hear it.
Actually, it's October 2nd. It was my 6-year anniversary yesterday. What I've been the most proud of, I think it's definitely like the last 4 years of my career at Visa.
I always say that I'm excited to start these because everyone I pick to come on here, I'm excited to hear their story.
Cool.
I'm really looking forward to it. So, can you start by telling us who you are, who you work for, and what your job title is?
Cool. All right. So Anil Toraty, I work for Visa. My job title is quite a long-winded one, but I'm the Senior Director for Risk Business Partners and Risk Strategy.
So try and explain that to someone who knows nothing about anything.
The best way of explaining it is I lead a group of people who work with the business very closely to understand what their risks are and then help mitigate them. And I try and do this from a really commercial perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're an ambitious company and we have high, revenue targets, and I just want to make sure that those revenue targets are being met. If there's any risks associated with that, we're mitigating for it and we're helping the business as much as we can.
Love it. I obviously do a lot of work with people in compliance, and they're called the deal prevention.
Yeah.
So you actually work in risk, but you're the deal acceleration and protection
We're
team.
enablers. Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
it. It's better to be on that side of the fence.
It's so funny that you say that. I think when people think risk, the first thing you think is, these are the guys that are going to stop us from doing
don't
business.
tell them.
Yeah. But I'm here just as ambitious as everyone else is to make money for the company. And that's what you got to always put out there.
That's a cool job.
Yeah. I love my job.
And risk's a cool title as well. So you've nailed it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with, this has gone well actually.
Yeah.
We were nervous about doing this, but it's gone well. So I'm going to start with 4 questions. The first one is, I have no idea where you're going to go with this. If you could have any job in the world for one day, what would it be and why?
This is a really tough one. It's so tough. For one day.
Only one day.
Okay. I would try. Do you know what? I'd want to be a pilot for a day.
What sort of plane? Or maybe a helicopter?
No, I reckon it's got to be like a fighter plane.
A fighter pilot.
It's funny because that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Yeah. There you go.
Yes. I've got it already. We're 2 minutes in.
Is this the fastest? Is this a record?
This is a PB.
Oh man, I'm so competitive. I feel like I've won. That's what I'm about. No, I always wanted to be a pilot, and I know now I'm still going to progress in my career.
Yep.
So it would have been an odd thing to say like a CEO of a corporate company because that's kind of my ambition in the long term. But I feel like I'm never going to be a pilot now. If I could, I'd do that for a day and see what it's like. It'd be awesome.
Flying is cool.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The absolute best piece of advice is to not compete with your peers. It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. And I mulled over this for a little while, actually. And the crux of it is, if you start competing with your peers, and if you're trying to win, they are losing. When there's winners, there's losers. Yeah. And I guess how you need to be thinking about it, and how I think about my peers in particular, is I will do anything to make sure that they're winning as well as me. So I'm not competing with them at any point. And I'm always trying to think how can I help everyone that I work with, whether that's my team, it's my peers. Yeah. Because also I think, if you're competing with people, you're so worried about looking the best, being the best, etc.
Yeah, perception.
And I think if you want to be a good leader and you want to just be a good person to work with, I feel like that level of competition isn't right. For me, anyway. So when this person told me that, I was like, this is such an interesting piece of advice, and it's really stuck with me. I got told this about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things.
It's great, and I always naturally go back to sport.
Yeah.
And it's like if you compete against the people that you're playing with.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
Good, thanks for that.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you're really proud of?
I don't do enough of this, but reflecting on my career, I'm actually just proud of the amount I've accomplished over the last 20 years, realistically. Actually, if I was to break it down, the past kind of 3.5, 4 years, it's probably been just the best. It's not a single moment, but I think what I've figured out, it's almost like I've unlocked the things I need to do to accelerate my career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
And I really do feel like I'm just so driven and so focused on what I want to achieve. I think that is what I'm actually really proud of.
You seem like you're in a good space.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you
Definitely.
feel like this is your like Goldilocks period. Make it last a long time, right?
Absolutely.
But it feels like you also. I think I got to see your profile because you were on. You were on the news channel talking about running a long way for raising money for mental health, which is great. We'll probably get onto that. But then you held the Olympic torch for the Olympics for Visa. And I was like, this guy is in his groove.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny because people are like, you're living your best life. And I absolutely am.
Yeah, good.
I'm just like doing everything. Because this summer for me was like, carried the Olympic torch, flew my parents over. They were there. They got to watch their son do that, which I think... You know, they hadn't been over here before to visit me, so it was quite interesting for them to see my life. They came into the office. Also, they met my boss. It was such a cool experience. It was like a bit of a parent-teacher interview. I talk about it, but they kind of got to see my whole life, and then for them to see me carry the Olympic torch, for me, it was like all of my accomplishments into one, and it was just such a great feeling to share that with the two people who probably, you know, feel the most for me and will like feel the most ever, if that makes sense. And I think that was so special. And do you know what? And I think it's actually a combination of like working hard, doing the right things, just trying to be a good person and putting other people ahead of my own kind of needs as well. And then it's crazy. Good stuff just comes to you, man.
It does.
It's so strange.
Do you know, my co-founder and I were talking about this the other day. We were saying, are we too nice? Because we don't like lie on the way into deals about what the product does. We just don't. Yeah. We don't try and shaft people. We just don't do it. And I said to him, I was like, I know the answer to this. Yeah. But are we being too honest? And are we being too nice? And he was like, you know the answer as well, but no, we're not. Because it will all come good. Yeah. But it's hard when you're going into stuff and you're like, there's a competitor that's like, like we do that. And I'm they don't. Yeah. So there's a thing, isn't there? Like a trade-off.
Absolutely. I think this honesty thing, there's something really in it. I think when I was like in my early 20s, actually, I had a leader who did this spreadsheet calculator thing that was like trying to calculate error rates in this particular process. Such a boring thing. But anyway. And
carry on.
Yeah. I won't go into too much detail on that. I'll stop there. That's the good summary of it. But basically, I put in the numbers and it spat out this number and they were like, no, it's not telling us what we need. You need to manipulate the data so it tells this story so we can get approval for this particular project and say it's not as good as it, whatever.
Oh my God.
And I at that point, I was like, well, I've got to do what I've been told. That part of my career fundamentally was like a sticking point for me because I never felt good about doing that. Yeah. And I was like, I cheated the system in a way. Do you know what? Now I'm just like so into the fact that I've got to be honest about everything. Yeah. One, if I don't think something's right, if the data's telling me something, I'm like, that's just what it is. Yeah. We just got to listen to it. We're going to do what we're going to do. I'm not going to manipulate stuff. I'm not going to,
It always comes back
numbers.
anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, random honesty.
No,
story,
I love it. I love it. I always say I can barely remember the truth, let alone lies.
Yeah.
Because imagine if you, I have to context switch a lot in my job, right? And we all do. If I told one person one thing that wasn't true and I had to remember, I'm like, no way. Absolutely. I can barely keep up with it is.
Absolutely.
Anyway, what is, I love this question, the most ridiculous thing you believed as a child?
Oh, this could be really embarrassing.
That's fine.
But I'll tell you anyway.
Go on.
So I reckon I must have been like 7 or 8 max. Anyway, I thought India was the world. Like I don't know why.
What do you mean? Like
that was it. Like when you went to the other side of
Did
India.
you live in India at this point?
Yes.
Because that would have been really weird. There's this other
Geography
place.
clearly was not like something I'd studied.
So you thought India
Maybe
just was this lump of mass
5.
floating through?
I thought that was it. I thought the whole world was India. And then I started doing geography, and then people started talking about, there's other countries. Like, this mind blowing.
How old were you, like 15?
Just to clarify, I reckon I was like 6 or 7.
Okay,
maybe
7 or 8.
Here we go. 10 or 12.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I was definitely like 6 or 7, because then when I was this was definitely when I was 6, because when I was 6.5, my parents were like, we're going to Australia. And I was like, what? What is this place I've never heard of?
Yeah.
And if India's the world, where are we going? Like, that's what I thought.
That must have been such a massive...
And it was completely bizarre. And then we came to Australia when I was 6, 1990, for like a 1 month.
Yeah.
Like, my parents wanted to kind of scope out living in Australia. And then we went back, and I was just like mind blown. It was just the coolest experience. Yeah. I knew all these random things. Like, learnt the geography of Australia. I knew the capital city, and I knew all about these different cities and the populations, blah, blah, blah. And I just got really into learning about other countries. But for probably till I was 5 or 6, I thought the whole world
you
was
definitely
India.
sound more Australian than Indian.
Yes.
So did you grow up, was English your first language?
No. Telugu is my first language. And actually really interesting. So my parents ended up moving to Australia when I was 10. So 1994 we moved.
Right.
So after I came to Australia for the first time. Spent 20 years in Australia.
Yeah.
And then I moved here when I was 30. So I spent kind of 10 years here.
Yeah.
Really interestingly, for the longest of time when I was living in Australia, I'd be like, well, I'm Australian.
Yeah.
And I was born in India.
Yeah.
And then with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world at the moment, I've now pivoted to be like, I own my heritage.
Nice.
Not that I didn't, but it's just easy to want to assimilate when you're
of course.
kind of younger
Teenagers
teens.
are less accepting of things like
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
So now I refer to myself as, I'm born and brought up in India and grew up in Australia. So
does that make? Do you say Australian Indian, or do you say?
I say I'm Indian.
Yeah, great.
That's like my cultural, my heritage.
Yeah.
It is my birthplace.
Yeah.
I also speak Telugu. Like,
you still speak it
yeah.
with your family?
Yeah, with my parents I do.
Amazing.
I speak it with an accent, and I get picked out when I do go back to India. Everyone can tell this guy's a foreigner.
Yeah.
But everything about me is Indian. But I think the way I think and evolved has got a lot of like Western culture in it as well.
Yeah, well, it sort of has to.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I've got the best of everything.
So it's fascinating. So we usually start this at high school.
Yeah.
And the thing I always find interesting to understand is, at high school, were you academic, and did you have any idea of what life was going to be like when you left high school?
I got to say this without sounding really arrogant.
You can do whatever you want.
Funny. Can we edit that bit out?
Yeah, no, that's getting highlighted and put on the cover reel.
The funny thing is, I knew I could do what I needed to do at school to get through, and I knew I was smart enough to understand everything, etc.
Dude, same.
I stuffed around so much.
Yeah.
But I also, the thing with me was, I've got an older sister who is so super smart.
Yeah.
Ducks of the school. She did like multiple degrees.
Yeah.
So super smart. And I always had this thing of like, always been compared to her. My parents expected me to be like just as smart, if not smarter than her when I finished school, et cetera, et cetera. And I think by the time I was 17, I knew I wasn't going to be in the same path as her, as like go to uni, et cetera. And I tried it.
Because she was in uni and doing her thing because she's that much older. Fine.
Yeah, she's like 4 years older than me. So she had a few years ahead, and she was already in uni, and I was like I got into uni, and I just was like, it just wasn't for me.
Yep.
Like, wasn't my learning style. I actually started, I was quite into music, so I started DJing when I was like 17. And I knew I had this like just entrepreneurial like thing to me. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this story. My parents actually told my boss this story when they came into the office.
Thanks, Mum and Dad.
Yeah. And my dad was telling them, like, when I was 13, it's basically my dad's a computer engineer. He used to work for a really, really big company. And I used to go to his work on the weekends because I used to have access to like the CD writers back in those days, so I could copy CDs.
Yeah.
It's a little bit illegal now, but whatever, it's fine. But basically what I used to do is save up my pocket money, go buy blank CDs, go to my dad's office on the weekends, burn a whole bunch of CDs. And then at school, I used to just sell them.
Yeah.
So I used to spend $10, buy 10 blank CDs, sell them for a tenner each.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd never buy anything either. I just borrow stuff from people to be like, oh, you've got this new game. I'll give you this game in trade. Let me borrow it for the weekend.
Lovely.
Blah, blah, blah. And I just like started
Supply and
flipping all
demand.
this. Man, I was making, $400 or $500 a week as a kid.
Yeah.
And then some parents cottoned on. And then they called my parents and they were like, your son's selling illegal CDs.
How did they react?
My mum was pissed. My dad was like, my boy. He just knew I had this thing in me of that I was so business oriented. And this is what I was saying earlier as well.
Yeah.
I'm ambitious to make money. Not like, at all expense, but I know that's my knack. That's what I'm good at. I can make deals, and that's all
I think too many people aren't honest about that. Like I talk about it like pretty openly. Like with what I'm doing, if you get what I do right, it's one of the only ways really to make like crazy money.
Yeah.
And I'm from a working class family, and if I like, but to do it, I have to be brilliant. So it doesn't mean I'm trying to cut cord, like I'm like being a mercenary. Like I have to be absolutely amazing to get the end result. So it doesn't matter that I want the end result, and that should be something that investors and everybody else think is good of course.
Ambition's great. I think.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the things I feel like I always talk about how much I want to do and what I want to do, what I want to achieve, where I want to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes me feel like, geez, am I a bit crazy? But I'm like,
No.
Yeah, I got to have ambition.
You got to find people that match your crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I always knew. I think by the time I was like 17, I knew I wasn't going to follow in my sister's or like in my parents' thought process.
But then you had no idea of what was next. So what did like the next like section of your life hold? Say if we get to like early 20s, like what happened in that phase? Because that's a good phase if you get it right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That was probably the most interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because I think at 18 I started working at GE Capital.
Yeah.
So General Electric.
How?
Just a call center job.
Okay.
I was the guy who used to do debt collection. Loved it.
Sounds tough.
Really random. I was calling people about their credit card when they missed a payment.
Yeah.
Used to churn it out. Used to be like,
whatever.
Whatever my KPIs were, let's get it done. 15 people, I got to call an hour and, do whatever. That's how I got into the corporate world. Mm-hmm. And then I very quickly just moved into like doing a bit of team leading, looking after a few people who were on the call center floor, and started working in the operations area of like the dialer system that used to actually make the outbound phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just kind of kept moving up, but not like massively progressing, if that makes sense.
Did it feel like a career at that point, or was it just a job?
I think at that time it was still a job.
Yeah.
I think until I was like 21, it was still a job for that first 3 years, just because I was still in uni, but just not going and, racking up a uni debt for subjects I wasn't even attending.
Yep.
Terrible. But at 21, I got this opportunity to be an operations analyst, and it basically started working on key projects across the business. I think at that point I realized, I think this is a career now.
Yeah.
Like there's something here. This is a 9 to 5. That's what I'm doing. It wasn't like a shift work.
Also, there's probably like a little bit of like you find a course that, because there's this you and your sister thing, right? Your sister's doing a uni thing, and you're looking for the thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's your thing.
Absolutely.
And to have your identity.
Absolutely. And it was super interesting because I actually then got my sister a job at GE as well, because she wanted a part-time job while she was while she was finishing up her uni, etc. And then we started to be like, well, we've got a really good like brother sister egg each other on. Always want to be like,
nice.
who's a little bit better, but not competitive, but just like, I don't know, spur each other on to be better, sort of thing, which is cool. But yeah, and then I think basically from that point till I was like 26, 27, I feel like I had a pretty good run, but I hit a plateau really, really quickly.
Okay.
I think I was a kind of like a manager sort of level, maybe senior manager sort of level, and I had quite large teams that I was leading just because I was working on really big projects. And I just don't know why, but I feel like I felt like I was ready to step up, but no one would promote me. Okay. No one would kind of take a chance on me, or and it was really weird. It was really, really tough for like 5 years, I think.
Did you have anybody, like any mentors or anything, or did you not know that mentorship was a thing? Was there anybody that was helping you? Yeah,
you know what? I had this one particular person who also gave me this advice about, don't compete with your peers.
Is that because, did they give you the advice because you were competing with your peers? Because you're a competitive person?
No, do you know what? He actually gave me that in reflection of his own situation. It was super interesting. I have the best relationship with this person, by the way.
Who is it?
This guy called Ben Adams.
He's going to see this?
Yeah.
Because you're going to send it to him?
Yeah, of course. I was trying to hold off on saying his name, but now I'll just add him.
Yeah.
But I talk about, because I mentor a few people as well. And the thing I always reflect on my relationship with Ben, and he's one of my closest friends now as well, like, because I see him every time I go back to Australia, every time he's in London, we catch up.
Yep.
And it's super interesting because I always reflect on two things: the honesty of our relationship, and the persistence that we both put in. Like, it's easy to be like, all right, it's been a year, I've been catching up with this person, I'm going to move on, whatever. Like, Ben and I have known each other for 20 years probably, maybe just a little bit under. But I had some career stuff that I was just trying to toss up about 8 weeks ago, and I literally just messaged him and I was like,
love it.
Do you have 5 minutes? I need to have a chat. And he was traveling for work. We spoke for like 40 minutes. And
love it.
And at the end of it, he was like, I got so much more out of this than you think. And I was like, that is just a good person, firstly.
100%.
And it's funny because, so Ben was my mentor in that period where I wasn't getting promoted. And I kept asking him, I'm like, I think I'm doing everything. Everyone says they like working with me, but I can't seem to get promoted. He then went and asked a few people for feedback on me, etc. And he did the one thing that I appreciate more than many other things that have happened to me in my life. And it's basically, he was like, write down who you think you are about yourself. Just, whatever. So
in your mid-20s, that's a hectic thing to write down.
And then he was like, and then let's catch up in a couple of weeks or in a week, and then, let's run through it. Man, writing stuff about yourself is fundamentally, for me, the way you can be ruthlessly honest, because it's just you and it's just words. It's such a strange thing. Anyway, then I wrote it down and Ben was like, yep, read it out to me. And when I did, I mean, I was in tears as I was reading this out to him. And then he was like, right, what do you think you need to do? And I was like, you know what? I need to be, because I knew it's not that I was faffing around at work, but I was just not focused on the right things. I was like trying to help everyone and whatever. There was just little things. And I was like, I need to be an honest person who's accountable and focused on delivery. And that became my mantra of like, that's my thing. And I still think about it every day. I'm like, am I honest? Am I accountable to what I'm doing? Ruthless on
focus.
Yeah, I got to be just so focused on delivery.
Love that.
And fundamentally game changer for me, because then after that, I think it still took me a few years to kind of embed that. Yeah. But when you said earlier, like, you seem like you're in a good place, it's because I've nailed that. For me, anyway. I'm not.
Do you find of those three, they're your three pillars? Yeah. Right, they're your three corporate pillars. Do you find that sometimes some of them are tested more than others, and you catch yourself because you can slip, right? Yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, it's always the execution aspect. Yeah. It's because I'm a bit of a dreamer. I'm a bit of like, I love to just think big and then come up with ideas, but it's like, it's easy to get caught out on the execution because that's what you get judged on, particularly in a corporate environment. So I'm always like making sure that I'm delivering. Yeah. Like, and people, it's not that I'm showing off about it or anything, but people seeing the output of the work, et cetera, et cetera. It's super important because then the balance for me is critical. I can be a guy with 1,000 ideas, but deliver zero. Doesn't matter. Facts. So, yeah. So you're at did you say GE? Yes. So what was the next big like leap? So kind of when I was like
27, 28, I tried to get into this corporate audit program. And
what's that?
So GE's corporate audit program it's called CAS, and it was basically like their creme de la creme of like a finance leadership program, IT leadership program, and then they had this corporate audit staff.
Okay.
And it was
That to me just sounds absolutely awful.
Wow.
Sorry to burst that bubble, but it just sounds dreadful.
I mean, you're basically doing auditing across all of the different areas of GE.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like 220,000 people company. It was massive, blah, blah, blah. And it was the best way to just get exposure to all these different businesses. Because I was in capital, then I could have gone into like the aerospace, like the jet engines business, the plastics, the healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And they would basically give you 6-month rotations. And it was like a guaranteed career accelerator.
Yeah, fine.
For a few levels. So I was like, in.
Yeah.
Worked my butt off. Like to just get a couple of interviews done to get accepted into the program. And then I was meant to fly out on the Sunday, and on the Friday I get a phone call and basically was like, hey, you don't have a degree, so you need to make a decision. You either can't be on the program or you have to withdraw. And I found that really, really, really tough. It was such a hard thing for me to swallow because at this point I dropped out of uni multiple times thinking I'm just going to focus on my career because that's where I want to go. And it killed me, man. It absolutely killed me. I'll never forget. I was sitting in the car park behind the office, and as soon as I hung up the phone, I just sat there and I was just like, I've just told basically everyone in my life that I got on this program. I'm meant to be going to Singapore on Sunday. Now I've got to eat it.
Jeez.
And basically...
And you're how old? 28, something like that?
Yeah, I was like 26, 27. And, you know, I had to go back to my boss and basically say, it's not going to work out. And, you know, they make all these plans to be like, well, Anil's moving on, so we'll backfill and do whatever. And I was like, yeah. And then you got to find the motivation, and it was super tough. And I'll tell you what, the next 3 years of my career were questionable if they helped me progress. Yeah. I did jobs.
Yeah.
I was fine.
Do you reckon it's because very rarely does this happen? You go job, and then it's career, and then you spend your life doing your career. It feels like it went job, career,
and then
job.
Yeah, and then I knew I was not in a good headspace as well, and I think I was just like battling some severe mental health challenges as well. Like just around this time, I think this amplified it tremendously, which was quite tough for me to just get through. I was. And I think I've spoken about this quite openly, but I was not in a good headspace to a point where I was like drinking a lot every night, drive home, which I'm super not proud of, and just I put people at risk more than obviously I put myself at risk as well. But it's really sad to reflect on it.
It's a bit of sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just felt like I kept pushing myself at work, but I knew I wasn't getting anywhere or whatever. Yeah. And
just like optics pushing yourself sort of thing, even if you like lying to yourself a little bit.
I definitely was. I thought I was doing all right, but I knew it wasn't going anywhere. And I think the best thing that happened was I met my at that time girlfriend. We've since broken up, but I think she was quite keen to move to the UK.
Okay.
And I was just about to turn 30. So like I was kind of right at the cusp of being able to get a visa to come to the UK. So I was like, actually, you know what? Let's just do it. She had the idea and I was like, timing is perfect. Yeah. Let's get it done. And
2-year work holiday. Off you go.
Exactly. So I was like, I'll quit my job and we'll try and make it work here. And
How did you feel on the plane? Not knowing what you were going to, thinking, because what you did, right? I know what you did. You had some money in your pocket that was going to get you for a couple of months, and you were going to land, get a place, and you're going to find a job.
Absolutely,
right? Absolutely. So you've got your banking app, and you know how much is in there, and you're like, all right, I'm fine.
Counting down the days.
So you then started to panic about what the job was, I assume, when you got to the UK, because you were like, shit, it's expensive here.
Yeah.
How did you go about getting a job?
Absolutely. I've always been like pretty good networking in general. So I had a couple of people that I knew.
Yep.
And a few people that I knew were like, and really weirdly, I was actually working in risk when I left GE.
Fine, yeah.
But only for a few years. So I wasn't like a risk professional at that point. I was like, I've always been a generalist and I still am. But when I landed here, a few people were like, here are a couple of recruiters. they're risk people, you know, they can get you risk manager jobs or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. And mate, I was flunking these phone interviews. I'm not going to lie. These people are like, how good are you at SaaS? And I'm like, I can just about do a couple of left joins. I was like, I can slap a few bits of code together and probably come up with a ton of errors, but make it work somehow. Yeah. Like I'll get a job done, but that's not my like bread and butter. Yeah. But really luckily, I knew this guy at GE in Australia. He happened to move over here and he was working for a payments company. I just messaged him and I was like, do you want to grab a beer? Because I'm in London. And he was like, yeah, sure. And then he was like, actually, do you want to come in and have lunch with me? And then we turned into a bit of an interview. Yeah. Like
that's
he basically
the best
explained this role. And he's like, because I used to do a bunch of process improvement stuff when I was at GE. And he's like, what I need is someone to come in to do like 3 to 6 months of mapping everything out. Yeah. Help do some actual work. He was the head of merchant onboarding. And
big problem area, I've heard.
Yes, absolutely. So I mapped out this whole process and I was like, here are the things that we need to think about. Yeah. And that just turned into...
And what company was that with?
PaySafe.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I worked with...
their merchant onboarding still isn't any good.
Cannot confirm or deny. No.
Can't.
It was great. It worked out really well because I kind of did like a 6-month contract and then rolled that into a role pretty quickly. But I tell you what, the thing that I did, like one of my other friends gave me a bit of advice when I was flying over here was, she was like, don't spend your days just looking for jobs. Like don't spend all day. I was like, that's a very interesting. And she was like, break it down. So I'd get up at 7, between 8 and 9, I'd call the recruiters that I wanted to do follow-up with. Like first thing, between 9 and like 11, I'd apply for jobs and I'd only apply for 3 jobs a day. That's it.
And do it properly.
Yep. And then between 11 and 12, I'd do some follow-ups and my day was done.
Yeah,
and I'd go to a cafe and I'd read a book. And that was it. They were my days for like a good month.
Awesome.
Man, it was the best thing because also I realized, you know, it's easy to be like, oh my God, I need a job and I'm going to look for every job. By the time 5 p.m. comes around and you're at the 10th job application and you're like, I can do all of this, and you're applying for random stuff, and you're updating your resume
you're losing
for
track
stuff,
of it, and it's
and I feel like it's diminishing returns.
It is.
So I think I've been given some really good advice that I've been able to like anchor myself to. Yeah. So I was less worried when I moved over here. I think I was just like super excited, to be honest.
Well, off the back of like 3 pretty negative years, following a new location is a fresh, like wherever you look at it.
Absolutely, environment change.
Dude, it's the best.
Absolutely the best thing. And
so how did that 6-month contract then turn permanent? So how long did you stay at PaySafe?
I was there for 3 years.
Wow. Why did you move?
I got a phone call from a recruiter.
Because you'd spoken to enough of them.
Yeah. And I was like, what? Actually, it was funny. I was so happy at PaySafe. I was like, everything was great. It was good career balance. Work was good. Got to travel a bit. Yeah, everything was fine. And then I was actually at Wimbledon, and
at the tennis?
At the tennis. Okay. Literally, I was on a day off, and my phone rang, and I was like to my ex.
That's where you added that in. I was on the day off.
Yeah, I was not. Yeah, actual annual leave day. This was pre-working from home days.
Such a good corporate citizen. I got a call. I was on the day off.
Yeah. Just check my out of office. No, and then I was like, oh, let me take this. And then this guy was like, we've got an opportunity, global company, blah, blah, blah. And I always felt like I had this X factor that just weeded out recruiters that didn't want to deal with me. Because I always said, I'm happy to entertain any idea, but I need sponsorship because I'm sponsored through PaySafe at the moment.
Oh, wait, okay.
And not only that, I need my partner sponsored. And that's usually like, too hard basket, see you later. Never call me back. This guy was like, cool, I'll call you back. No worries. Next day calls me back. Done, no worries. Can you come in for an interview? And I was like, okay, tell me about it. It turned out to be Visa. They were really, really...
So was it an internal recruiter at Visa or was it an external? Wow.
External.
And they had that buy-in. Wow.
He just was like, you're the guy that they need.
Wow.
I reckon he knew the team really well and he was like, it's a perfect connection. I'm really going to make this happen. And I was like, okay. He met with me a couple of times, this recruiter, and then I went and did a couple of interviews, and
At
it all
Paddington?
happened. Yeah, and it all happened really, really quickly, actually. And then actually, it's October 2nd. It was my 6-year anniversary yesterday.
Wow.
And yeah, I feel like, and you know what I was saying, what I've been the most proud of, I think it's definitely like the last 4 years of my career at Visas.
So what job did you go in to do? Do you remember the title?
I was the strategic improvement director. It's
good.
It sounds basically I worked on like
which strategies were you improving?
Yeah. Basically working on like key internal projects that would help accelerate revenue.
Okay.
Like that was the key.
Because PaySafe's big.
Yeah.
Visa's massive.
Yes.
How was that transition?
I hated the first 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, because it's funny, I justified myself going into Visa thinking I worked at GE, massive conglomerate, worked at PaySafe, and I actually was at PaySafe when it was Skrill. So it was tiny, then merged and became PaySafe. And then I was like, I think I want to go back into corporate. I got to test it out.
Yeah.
See if that was for me.
Because you've got new skills, you've been in a new country, you're older, like great.
Exactly. So I was like, let's give it a go. And I actually spoke to Ben because I knew he'd gone to Visa in Australia. And I was tell me about it. And he was like, great company, great vision, great strategy, great leadership. Yeah. He's like, I've never felt so bought into a company. And I was like, God, if Ben's saying this, it's got to be good. He knows me. And he knows how I think. Yeah. So I went, but I think Europe was quite different to,
no doubt,
to like the rest of the parts of Visa, and I just struggled. I think I struggled on a personal level to fit in as well because I felt like there was a fair bit of red tape. I was also in an environment for 3 years where I could do whatever I wanted and whatever. But I think very quickly I figured out that what I'm also good at is building relationships, and I was like, here's the unlock for me. Yeah, it took me a little bit longer. I was also a little bit unwell, so I had a little bit of time off in 2019. Yeah. And then I think I just found my groove right around COVID. Okay. Really oddly, because then I got pulled in to help run the COVID response, which meant I got like quite a bit of exposure with some amazingly smart people.
Yeah. There'll obviously be parts that you can't say, but like, what does the COVID response mean where Visa is concerned?
Yeah,
revenue protection, like what?
Yeah, I think it was just navigating the unknown. Yeah, you know, it wasn't so much like just protecting the revenue, but it was also just thinking about how people are going to work. You know, this whole new like work from home situation. And what I was kind of involved in was helping look after all of the different projects that were going on and making sure that this key group of people that were making the decisions, etc., had the right information at the right time. So I was kind of doing a bit of project management and whatever. But I got the insight and I learned so much of how people make decisions, how they think, what are the important things.
And big decisions as well, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like I learned so much at that time. And although I can't kind of go into too much intricacies aspect, but it's also cool to see how different people make different decisions and what they prioritize as well, whether it's the commercial aspects, whether it's the people aspect, whether it's the company longevity, whatever. But the decisions they all come up with and how they debate those decisions with each other, I was like, this is cool. I'm learning so much and this is where I'm going to be.
So after your like your second slump.
Yes.
Which is what it was. Put. After your second slump, your shoulders are starting to go back and the chin's starting to go back up.
Yes.
That's absolutely. The journey from there to now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So during COVID, a completely different way of working. Yeah. That doesn't actually suit you as much because you're a people person. You're an in the office, like 100%. Let's go, come with me sort of guy.
100%.
Was that a difficult part of this new Goldilocks period? Because you're like, I'm in the right spot now and I can, crap, I'm in my kitchen.
Yeah. It was weird. I felt like I didn't struggle as much until right at the end because I just was like, this is the new whatever way of
normal
working.
As we called it then. Yeah.
Crazy. So I just went with it.
Yeah. And delivery on your pillars.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, got to be focused on execution. Yeah. Also, it's easy to just throw yourself into work. And it was just me and my ex at that point in a tiny 1-bed flat. Yeah. And, we'd sat closer than this and I'd be like, I'm about to go on a call. And she's like, I'm not on a call. So we'd coordinate. And this is how we worked for kind of the best part of 10 months or whatever it was. But then I had a couple of moments where I was burnt out, like, because I was doing quite long hours, whatever. And I think the moment that our office opened up and they were like, limited number of people can come in, I was in. I was there. I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
Because also I could ride into the office, barely any traffic. I was like, this is a dream situation.
Yeah, lovely.
And yeah, the office was empty. But for me, going back to what we were saying about the environment change, it's so important. Because also when I leave the house every day, going into the office, regardless if I run in or ride in or commute in, tube, whatever, I'm zoning myself into, I'm about to go somewhere.
That change.
To work.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't think I'm as good when I'm leaving, because I don't think I leave work at work. I'm still thinking about it, whatever. But I know I've come home. My routine is now slightly different, and I work in a different way as well. Yeah. But I love that. But I'm a 5 days in the office type of a person.
Oh, really?
I enjoy it.
There's got to be a band of you. Like, there's got to be a group of people that are just like the hardcore, we're going to be in the office 5 days a week.
Very few.
Yeah, but you know who they are.
Everyone's got their what's going to maximize their output.
Yeah.
Whether that's 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, whatever.
Yeah.
I just like, you find your groove, and as long as we can work together, that's all that really matters. But
love it.
I know that sometimes I'm not everyone's cup of tea to be like, geez, this guy, all he does is work, or all he does is come into the office or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Fine.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
If we're all the same, it'd be really boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you as like COVID finishes, you start going back into the office. Your role, having been in that COVID response group, was no doubt elevated because you delivered on some of the work there. So going into COVID versus coming out, you're a different thing within Visa.
Absolutely.
How was that?
It was super interesting because I then got asked to do a couple of other quite big projects. Yeah. I also helped out with the Ukraine war response as well from a visa perspective. Obviously, we had employees, et cetera, et cetera. And
I remember speaking to Neil Caldwell when all that was happening, because he was clearly pretty well involved, because he was still Samir there. Like, he just was like, I can't say much, but it's a lot.
Absolutely.
Like,
which is
buses getting people out and also from the office and all sorts of, like, wow.
Yeah, which is exactly what I can say. I can't say too much, but it was wow.
Yeah.
And I think
I'm like, I want to know. You know, I've got mates in the special forces, and I'm like, come on.
Do you know what's really strange about it is, it's when I realised I work with such an amazing group of people.
Yeah.
And
when the chips are down.
Man. And I think it made me realise that I would do anything for many of the people I work with, just because I know the sort of stuff that they did for other people. Yeah. And I'm just like, great. And it's kind of a top-down leadership thing. I think people who don't believe in like leadership sets culture, et cetera, I think it's silly, because you see it, you feel it. Yeah. And I was a part of it, and I never felt so like connected to my work ever. So
it's like you said, the best teams aren't competing with each other, right?
Absolutely.
And you'd have felt that. And when there's a that was a must do, not a nice to do.
Yeah.
That's when you see what people are made of.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what's interesting? Some of it is must do. But we still did so much more.
Do you know? There you go. That's really nice.
I can't say too much, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, there was stuff we had to do, but
And man, we did exceptional amounts, and I love the fact that we never spoke about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, without making it sound really corny, it's like, it really felt like family. You just wanted to look after it, and you didn't worry about anything else. It's like, that was the number one thing, and I loved it. And I was a core part of it. Yeah. And it was really, really tough. But I felt like, you know, to your point as well, like post-COVID, there was a little bit of like, right, Anil can execute.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a dependable person, et cetera. And then I worked on a couple of other things, and then I got put on another couple of big projects, and I was like, okay, cool, this is great. Yeah. And then there was a possibility I was going to work on one more like crisis sort of thing. Yeah. And I was like, it's going to be the Anil crisis. I think I'm like, there's only so many kind of crisis things I could have done. But to be honest, I was also going through something super personal at that point. I just found out some really terrible news about my relationship, and I was basically going through a really bad breakup. And I threw myself into work so hard that no one at work knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
And people were like, wow, he's doing amazing. But man, I was dying inside.
Yeah.
I was like, I was not in a good place. And then basically that was about 2.5-ish years ago.
Okay.
And then I basically finished in this director role, and I got the current role that I'm in in August of 22. I went away for a month, and I was like, I just need a reset.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and that's when I was like, right, I've got to start talking about what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Because now I'm in a position where I lead a team, etc. I think when you're an individual contributor, it's a little bit easier to eat what you're feeling and just hunker down and work and throw yourself into it. But like, my team feels my energy. And I think it's up to me to help create that environment where it's okay to not be okay. If you come in and you're not doing amazing one day, I'll accept it.
Yeah, exactly.
Go home. Give me a 5 out of 10 day. It's fine. Do what you got to do to tick it over and come back tomorrow and let's go again, basically. So I feel like, that shift, hence why, I'm going back to what you asked earlier, like, this is why I'm so proud of like the last few years, because I think now I know who I am. I feel like I've got a bit of a purpose.
Yeah.
And particularly coming out of a 10-year relationship, you lose yourself. And like,
of course.
What the hell?
You become half of the thing rather than.
Absolutely. So I feel like I've got an identity now and I've got a purpose, and I feel, I feel good.
It's working, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously working. And it's so amazing, like, that we go full circle. We talked about having that torch at the Olympic ceremony. It feels like that is like, I've gone round and round and round and round.
Yeah. Exactly.
Here we are.
And do you know what's funny? When I was carrying the torch, I was waiting for the person before me to come to me. We did the torch kiss, it's called.
Okay.
And I was standing there waiting.
Weird.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I was standing there waiting for the security person to say, like, you can start walking. And then in my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to think about?
I love
like, what is it that I want to reflect on?
Yeah.
And at that moment, I decided nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing.
just be there.
This moment is just for me. The next 90, 120 seconds is just for me to absorb this energy.
Yeah.
Because it is everything that I've worked coming together for this moment. And it's not that it was for me, but it was for me to feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just...
Are you glad you did that?
Yeah, man. Because I remember all these like random people cheering and just like such positive energy. And I think also something about the Olympics, it's quite it's in such good spirit, and to know that the world can be a really good place. And I know that there's some really, really horrible situations that we are having to hear and deal with all the time. To know that there's still hope was beautiful, and to feel like I'm a part of that hope. Yeah, it's also really, really beautiful. So,
dude, that's an amazing thing to end on.
Oh,
what a pleasure!
Absolutely, this has been super awesome, man.
Good. I'm excited. I'm excited for your friends and family and everyone you work with to listen to your story, because you probably haven't really gone through it with people. Yeah, not at this kind of linear, kind of different aspects as well. But it is great to reflect. I think people need to do. Obviously, everyone might not get this opportunity to do a podcast like this, but I think reflecting on your journey is a beautiful thing to do. We should do it more often, for sure. Absolutely.
And that concludes another episode of Not What I Expected. I hope you loved that as much as I loved recording it. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, tell us how you think it could be better. Thanks, and see you again.